If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my. I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to Player Performance, the college football preview edition. We're breaking down all the conferences, the major conferences. I am Guns Picks. Joined with me, as always, is Coach. What's going on, my friend? How you doing today?
Wonderful. It's just one step closer to the greatest time of year. It's almost Christmas Eve in my house. Week 0 going to start here pretty soon. So ready to get through this ACC and see what the season holds.
Yeah, as we're recording this, we got 2 days? We get a couple more sleeps. Yeah, and it's going to feel like Christmas, right? We're going to have a little bit of an appetizer on Saturday, and then, of course, the big slate coming next week. But we got to give you all the breakdowns of every single team. This is the last conference. We're doing the ACC up and down the board. We'll give you our insights on what we think these teams are going to be. We'll give you some win totals along the way. We'll give you some best bets. If you're watching this now, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the J Cavalier channel, and make sure you check out all the content on the Why Lose Network. And furthermore, let's get into the ACC. It starts right now with the first team on the board. We're going to go with the Boston College Eagles. We got Bill O'Brien coming back for another session in year 2. Not a bad season for him. A little bit of adjustments here and there. Very difficult schedule for him coming into this one. A lot of people are going to want their pound of flesh too, and a couple upsets that he had. But I'll start with you, Coach. What do you think of the Boston College this season?
Yeah, BC is it's been a great program. It's a program I kind of keep my eye on. One of the guys in our training organization actually go look up the Hail Mary by Doug Flutie. He was actually the fullback on the play. But so we pay attention to what BC does. And you mentioned O'Brien had a decent year, his first year, 7-6, ended up losing the bowl game. The thing that happened last year, which, kind of sets the tone for this year is, the quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, they had some issues towards the end of the season there. And he was no longer the starter, and he ended up transferring to Florida State, which we'll talk about later. But so they'll break in a new quarterback. They were talking about Grayson James, but it's going to be Dylan Lonergan, who was a transfer from Alabama. Decent. I mean, he should be okay. And again, remember, Bill O'Brien, this isn't new to him. He coached at Penn State for a few years, after the whole Paterno fiasco. So he has college experience. He's very good with QBs, so I'm sure Lonergan will be fine. He's got 2 good receivers. Lewis Bond comes back 67 catches from last year. Reed Harris, perfect guy that I love, 6'5", just big, long, lean receiver. Several starters back on defense, 6, I believe, total. The one kid, they do lose the D end. I mean, that kid was a stud. Yeah. I'll mispronounce his name, but he was an All-American, 16.5 sacks, I believe. So you got to replace him. The thing for Bill O'Brien and BC this year, also I should mention one of my favorite, this is probably a Key and Peele, East-West running back, Turbo Richard, BC, so you keep him in the back of your mind. But the schedule is the big thing for BC. So we'll talk about the rest of these teams, but there's a team that I like, Georgia Tech. We'll get to them. They've got Georgia Tech. They'll play Notre Dame. They'll play SMU. They'll play Clemson. They get them at home. But they're playing probably the top 3 or 4 teams in the ACC. They have to play them all. With a new quarterback, it's going to be a tough one, I think. Win total set at 5.5. I think that's kind of sharp, really. 7 wins last year and 5 or 6. Pick one. That's it'll come down to whether or not Dylan Lonergan steps up and can lead this offense.
Yeah. And if he doesn't, I think Grayson James is in the fold as well there. So we look at the quarterback. You said a lot of it, a lot of the notes that I have on this one. I'll try not to reiterate in some of these takes, but yeah, the quarterback position was kind of in a fiasco all season long, and it had to do with Castellanos kind of like being a little bit disgruntled, got hurt. James stepped in. They started getting wins, and I think he wasn't feeling part of the team anymore. He took off. The running back position, I think, is there should be some concern, but I like this kid Jordan McDonald that they're bringing in. He's going to get a run of the work. He had 2.8 yards per carry last year on 53 carries. Not a lot of work, but in a small sample size, he showed some promise. The wide receiver core, 3 out of their 4 top receivers are back from last season. They had some transfers for depth, so they got a little bit better on the offensive side of the ball. Only got 2 returning starters on the offensive line, and they add a bunch of guys from the FCS. So I don't know how that's going to fill the void there. Having guys on the come up to fill in those roles in a bigger atmosphere in the P4 division. And the defense side, you said it. I think the secondary is mostly intact, but you mentioned their top pass rusher, 16 and a half sacks. He's going to be gone. That was kind of it's going to be a huge loss for them this season. Then you mentioned the schedule. I think what's going to happen is they have one of the toughest home schedules on the planet. And you mentioned those teams: Notre Dame, SMU, Clemson, Georgia Tech, all at home. And in college football, if you're not one of the better teams, if you're just kind of below average to average, you need your home games. You need those wins, and I think that's going to be what's going to be the detriment to this team. BC was 1-4 straight up on the road last season, so they're not a good road team. I think this is going to come down to they're going to have to beat a big team at home. One of those ones that I mentioned to get bowl eligible. I think if I had one way or the other, I would take BC and under on their wins 5.5. They basically said this is either a bowl team or not a bowl team. So I think that's the way it's going to be on this one. And I'm not really confident that BC can get over the snide, knowing their home schedule is just insane. All right, next team on the board. We're going to be going with the hat that I'm wearing right now, the Cal Bears. And Justin Wilcox and company. Man, this team was such a great team to bet on in the past. They've kind of fallen off the wayside a little bit. The talent is kind of depleted on this one. It may be telltale signs that they may need to make it a change at the head coaching positions, which is sad. But this Cal team steps in once again, and look at the talent roster. Well, I'll start with you, Coach. Not looking too bleak on in my opinion, but what do you think about him?
Yeah, you mentioned Coach. Actually, I applaud Cal for keeping Justin Wilcox this long. A lot of these programs, Cal's one of them, where you're not USC and you're not even UCLA and you're not Oregon. You're not an upper tier. Back when they were in the Pac-12, they're not an elite Pac-12 team. It's the same in other conferences as well. These teams that, they can win, 4, 5, 6 games. And if you can win 6, 7, 8, and just keep doing that. And then maybe once every 5 or 8 years, you have a great season. Kind of like Pat Fitzgerald did it at Northwestern. You get to hold on to your job. And I think schools that realize, hey, we're not an elite program. Like I said, I applaud Cal for keeping him this long. I don't know if they can keep him if they pull another 3-4 win season. I don't know if he's around next year, but it's going to be tough to get to 6 wins, which, their win total set at 5.5. It is juiced to the under, which I can see why. You mentioned the roster, the kids that they lost. Fernando Mendoza was a quarterback in the same class as a guy that I mentioned, a kid that I have at Purdue all the time, but he was a quarterback in the state of Florida, and he was very good, and he did well last year for Cal, and he's gone. He hightailed it up, and he's out. He's at Indiana. Jade Knott, outstanding running back, transfer portal, gone. Jack Endries is an NFL tight end, but he's playing at Texas, So, I mean, he like Wilcox had some studs, especially offensively. He had some really good players, but they're gone. So 2 starters back, flip a coin on the quarterback. I mean, and the big thing offensively, like, he better fix it up front or they're in for a long season. So 2 teams in college football last year gave up 50 or more sacks, and Cal was one of them. So whoever the QB is, hopefully he's not running around for his life. But they need to fix that, or it's a no-go. Defensively, I mean, that's Justin Wilcox's thing. Like, he's a defensive guy. I would expect they'll be okay. They've got 2 returning starters. You can talk about some of their personnel. But the best thing that Cal did in the offseason, if you remember the name Ron Rivera, successful NFL coach. Ron Rivera played college football at Cal and is back as a GM now, college teams and their GMs, right? So he's in the program. I think that helps them in the future. I don't know if it helps them this year. One thing that does help them is they don't play Clemson.
Yeah.
So, and they do play Duke and they do play SMU, but they get them at home. But this is it's going to be a tough go for Cal. They'll get a couple of non-conference wins, but trying to get through this ACC schedule. And I know the ACC, we all talk conferences and, we say that the ACC isn't the Big Ten or the SEC, but still a solid conference and still a conference that can beat each other up. So I don't see Cal getting to 6 wins this season. I'd take the under on the 5.5.
Yeah, I looked at it as a coin flip. It's another one of those teams that I think BC kind of falls into the same realm. You get that 5.5, you just be like, is this a bowl team? Is it not a bowl team? It's like that's what the books are basically asking you that question every time. A lot of the losses are on the offense for the Cal Bears. Like you mentioned, Mendoza, he's gone. Jaden Nod, he's gone. The replacements on this one, they get as far as the running back position, they get a SMU transfer there who should get brunt of the work. And quite frankly, I thought the running game kind of underperformed for Cal last year. Bar set very low for them to get improvement there. One solid returning starter from the wide receivers. They do get Jacob DeJesus, and this is a wide receiver that came over from UNLV, a guy that was in the bowl game versus Cal last year, but he was with UNLV. And he was the MVP of the game. So maybe some positivity there, at least from the wide receiver corps. Offensive line will need some work as far as the experience factor, but their line wasn't that great last year, so they should be somewhat on par or better. Defense is what the strength is, like you said, Coach. But the schedule on this one, even though the schedule is kind of favorable for them, they get SMU at home. They have the toughest road games are basically Virginia Tech and Louisville. Non-conference schedule, maybe a little bit of a challenge, though. They have to play Oregon State, former Pac-12 rival, but they have to go to Corvallis. And if you know anything about Corvallis, very tough place to play in any condition. And then Minnesota and at San Diego State. You mentioned some of these. No Clemson, Miami, Florida State, no Georgia Tech. You get that luck of the draw there. So that's why their schedule is like in the 60s as far as ranking of toughness is concerned. But yeah, you look at it all together. Wilcox has kind of got his back against the wall. I think. I don't know if Cal is just too lazy to go find another coach or something like that. But I think he's playing for his job this season. The problem is Cal is 7-36 versus teams with a winning record under Wilcox, and that's unacceptable. You got to get W's against teams above 500, and 5.5 is a coin flip to me. I don't know if they're going to get there or not. Seems like the lean is towards the under. It's just a tough, especially with the personnel changes. I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from that and actually have a good season. All right, we're done with these little teams now. Let's get into some big boys now. Let's get where the big boys play. Let's get some playoff type of teams. Yeah. Dabo Sweeney. People wanted to cut his head off, not taking NIL guys, not getting transfers, sticking with the recruiting. He, lo and behold, miraculously gets to the ACC championship, goes against SMU, gets the win, gets into the playoffs, and kind of shows some life, some exuberance, even against Texas. And Texas was one of the tougher teams last season. But this team is poised, ready to go, and they're bringing back a lot of talent. But I'll start with you, Coach. Clemson Tigers, what do you think?
Oh, a ton. Preseason top 5. I'll tell you right off the bat what you should do is you can still get Clemson to win the ACC at plus money. So it's today plus 110 to win
Insane.
the ACC. I mean, that, they did it last year. You're going to bring back, 17, 18 starters. You don't think they're going to do it again? Come on. Cade Klubnik.
Yeah, plus 125, I think.
Yeah, there
now.
you go. Plus 125. And it was funny way back, just like when all the odds were released for conferences, Clemson was plus 400. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, who do you think is, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some good teams in the ACC, but I mean, Clemson's the cream of the crop. 8 starters on offense. Cade Klubnik, All-American caliber kid, outstanding. He's got all the stats. He's got all 3 receivers back, 4 offensive line starters. I always talk about if you're good up front, you have the potential to be good. Offense averaged 33.5 points per game last year. What's to say they don't, eclipse that this year with everybody coming back, all that experience. Defensively, 6 defensive starters too. And remember, they're, these elite teams, and Clemson's one of them. They've done it in the past where, you watch their offense and they run up and down the field, but really they're winning games because of their defense. And probably the best thing Dabo did in the offseason was go grab Tom Allen from Penn State. So not only do you have 6 dudes back and some experience behind those guys, you have one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, Tom Allen. Like, this will be no joke. Like, Clemson's defense probably even better this season. So this is a team that, like I said, I would grab to win the ACC at plus 110 right now. The win total, I mean, do you like the value at 9.5? Where I think the over is juiced over minus 200. So
it's up to 10.5 right now.
And that's what I was thinking is, it's probably up to 10.5. So, do they get there? I mean, you're going to open the season with LSU. You go back and forth to LSU. We talked about them in the SEC. Last year they lost their opener to USC. Who knows? But once you get past that, the ACC schedule. I mean, take a look. I mean, who do they got? Duke at home, SMU home. They don't play Miami. I mean, the toughest game in the ACC, at Louisville, maybe at Georgia Tech.
In the conference.
I mean, and you bring up the revenge factor. And I know that, and they're going to get everybody's best game. Like, that's, hey, we want to beat Clemson. They're going to get everybody's best game, but they've shown repeatedly throughout Dabo Swinney's career that they can take the punch in the mouth and punch right back. So this is a team that can win. They can get to 10 wins. Can they get to 11? That's a stretch, but the better bet, I think, is on them to win the ACC.
Yeah, I agree with you. You get it, like I said, you can get it at plus 125 right now, and I think it's going to be available before week 0. The offense looks good despite their losses. Cade Klubnik, I mean, he's going to be the horse for this team this year. I mean, he's kind of like been that guy. He's been a great quarterback for them, very productive, but he's always had like a running back in the background. He's either had Shipley or he's had Phil Maffa. Well, now he's got to kind of be the guy. He's got to be the guy that's going to be the leader, run the offense, pass the ball. They do have a solid freshman prospect in Gideon Davidson from Lynchburg, Virginia, that's going to be coming in. So he should be able to fill that role, but who knows how good that kid's going to be on as young as he is. They bring back 9 starters on the defense, 5 out of their top tacklers from 2024. And I think I looked at the top 25 ESPN. I think 3 guys were at least in the top 20 as far as defense is concerned for Clemson. So, I mean, it's mostly not the corners per se. It's the defensive line. It's the linebackers. It's those front 7. And then you mentioned Tom Allen coming in. What an addition. Bringing him in there for, former head coach for Indiana, DC for Penn State last season. Now he's going to be just being that guy. Oh my God. It's going to be exciting to see what he does with that defense with so many tools and so many weapons. But the schedule is just not tough. I mean, you mentioned a lot of the road games, you mentioned the home games in this one. 9 wins last season and 10 if you include the conference championship in there. And the win totals are 10. It's going up to 10.5 now. And this Clemson team is by far not only a contender to win the ACC championship, but a contender to win the national championship. This is one of the better teams that you remember seeing with Dabo Swinney going into the year with the talent that he has. Can Cade Klubnik kind of step up and be that lights or brightest kind of guy? I don't think I've seen that yet. We've seen it in an ACC championship environment. I haven't seen it in a college football playoff yet. And that's kind of the little bit of a concern in there. But this team is loaded to the rafters with NFL talent left and right. And I think this is going to be a team that we need to be watching. And I just feel bad for the rest of the ACC that has to deal with this monster that's going to be coming there with the Clemson Tigers. All right, next game. Let's go into the Duke Blue Devils. No, we're not talking about college basketball. No, we're not talking about the talent that's coming back and all the recruiting for the Duke Blue Devils basketball. We're talking about Manny Diaz's team, right? Yeah. Manny Diaz, very surprising year last year. I think it's surprising to most of the handicappers that took the under on their wins, including myself. But he stepped into the role. I thought Manny Diaz was a joke of a head coach, but a great coordinator. But he showed me wrong, and he did enough to build this team to be great. We're seeing I would call it a high win total for Duke. But I'll ask you, Coach, what do you think of the Duke Blue Devils? Do you think they're going to be better or worse in this year?
Well, you mentioned the win total. I saw it at 6.5. It's probably 7.5 now. This is a football team on the rise. It's a program on the rise. If you know anything about Duke University, this is an elite institution in the United States. This is an Ivy League school in the South. Duke, I don't know if you know anything about endowments, but Duke has the 18th largest endowment in the country among universities, and what that means basically is they have a ton of money. Well, they're deciding to spend a lot of that money not only on basketball but also in their football program. So look for some great things to come from not only Manny Diaz, but from just the Duke football program. Like you mentioned, 9-4 last year. They'll return 7 starters offensively. They'll have a new QB, but they went out and they basically bought one, and that was Darian Mensah. He's coming in from Tulane. Had a great season at Tulane last year. Defensively, I think is the key for Duke. Manny Diaz is a defensive guy. He's been a defensive coordinator, around the horn, and was at Penn State as well. We just talked about Tom Allen, but defensive guy, and I think the defense is the key for Duke. And that's kind of the thing, with some of these coaches that I really like. They're defensive minded. They hire somebody to go take care of the offense, and they make sure that the offense focuses on running the football and being physical. And then they turn around and be physical on defense. So I think Duke does what they do, or did what they did last year. Get after the quarterback. They were tied for first in the ACC in sacks with 43. They were able to keep teams from scoring for the most part. And when you do that, you give your offense a chance. And this year with Mensah at QB, I think he's a little bit more dynamic maybe than Malik Murphy and some of the other guys that they've had. But I think this is a team that, when I saw and I looked at this win total a while ago at 6.5, and I thought, man, that seems kind of low. But 7.5, if that's what the number is now, they're telling you, hey, is it a 6-win team? Is it a 7-win team? Is it an 8-win team? So you have to look at the schedule. I mean, their toughest game is going to be at Clemson. That's like almost a preview of the conference championship, maybe. But after that, you look at their schedule. I don't think they don't play Louisville. They're going to miss Miami. There's quite a few of the upper echelon teams in the ACC that they miss in the schedule. So I think that they do very well, and with counting a bowl game and maybe a conference title. I mean, this could be another 9-win season for Duke.
Yeah, I mean, I project this team to be a 7 to 8 win team. You're seeing 6.5. If you see 6.5 on the board, it's going to be heavily juiced unless you can find some book that has it lower. I'm seeing minus 200 plus on the juice on the over. Yep. So even I think there's a lot of people that think this thing's going over, and I tend to agree if it's at 6.5. But getting Darian Mensah to come over from Tulane, huge addition to that offense. A guy that can move around inside, outside the pocket. He can run. He can throw. And he's going to have an offensive line that gets 4 starters back. This offensive line only allowed 12 sacks last year, and now they get like a quarterback that is very mobile and can just create plays in time with his feet. The defense gets 7 starters back. They lose their 3 top tacklers. Transfer portal kind of filling the depth in there, but Manny Diaz just knows defense better than anybody. And you said it, Coach. Very good pass rush, which is kind of typical for a Manny Diaz defense. We saw it at Penn State. We saw it here. 43 sacks last season for this team. Non-conference schedule. They're going to play Elon, UConn, Illinois, and Tulane. Tulane going to be you got to go against Mensah, guy that you had last year. And you mentioned that you got to cut Clemson on the road. Fine. You got to go play them anyways eventually. And then Georgia Tech at home, luckily. And Louisville, SMU, and Miami are not on the schedule. 9-win team last year. It was funny because they were 5-3 versus ACC opponents last season, despite having a minus 53 net yard average. So they lost the yardage battle on average against their opponents, but still were 5-3. Usually you see numbers like that, you would think it's going to be regression, but the books aren't saying that. Granted, they won 9 games last season, and you're making it at 6.5. So you're saying, yeah, this team's not going to win 9 games. They could with that schedule, but I think they're a 7 or 8 team win team, and I think they get it done and actually compete in the ACC. So we'll see what happens with the Blue Devils. All right, next team on the board, we're going with the Seminoles. What a disappointment with this team. What happened? What happened? You go to week 0, high hopes for the team. Got Norvell, having that great year. Didn't make the college football playoff, got ousted. Everybody left. Everybody was hurt. And then, lo and behold, the next season, you lay the biggest egg of all time where everybody expected you to be great. 2-10. That is unacceptable in any case. And now, coming to this season, maybe you got a chip on your shoulder. Maybe you're a little bit undervalued. I'll start with you, Coach. What do you think of this Florida Seminole team?
The only way to go is up, right? I think I mentioned, we did the Big 12 preview, and I mentioned about teams winning their first game. And as a head coach, that was goal number 1 every year on the board. Beat whoever. And for this year, unfortunately, they open up with Alabama, but it's beat Alabama. Like, that's the goal, and this year, they're going to play Alabama number 1, but they do get it. They get an FCS team in week 2. So, they should get a win there, but anything will be better than 2-10. But losing is contagious, and hopefully Norvell has kind of reshuffled his roster enough to kind of get that feeling out of the program. He will get Thomas Castellanos from BC. We mentioned him. He's a dynamic QB. He's a small guy, but he can run it. He can throw it. So he will have him. He only has 1 other starter back, I believe, on offense. So it's a team that'll be rebuilt by the portal. A couple transfer receivers that probably also make the Key and Peele East-West team.
Yeah,
you got the Deuce Robinson, Florida State. And then probably one of the favorite names this year, Squirrel White, wide receiver, Florida State. But he came from Tennessee. So a couple good receivers. And probably the best dude coming in is the new O-line coach was Herb Hand. So a lot of people probably don't follow offensive line guys, but Herb Hand is very, very well respected in the profession as one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. So he won't have any starters back and not much experience, but he's going to have to pull together to get Florida State some wins. And if you look at a 2-10 team with a win total of, I think it's now 7.5, because they're another team like Duke where they were 6.5, but it's been juiced up. So the books are telling you they don't expect Florida State to be another 2-3 win team again. So once they get past Alabama, it's East Texas A&M, then it's Kent State, which I love MAC football, but Kent State, they're just they're not very good. They don't play Duke, they don't play SMU. Florida State does not play Georgia Tech or Louisville. So the schedule, it looks pretty favorable. And, that line at 7.5, I think it's sharp. It'll be interesting to see if they could, if they can get an extra win somewhere and get over the hump for that 8th win. I'm not sure they can do that. We'll see. This is a team that I wouldn't want to lay on either side right now. But they're going to have to improve on both sides of the ball. And Mike Norvell's going to have to do a heck of a coaching job this year to get his program back on track to where he was at when they went 13-1.
Yeah. I think this is back against the wall, Mike Norvell. And I think what he did to basically said, whatever happened in that 2-10 season, we need to reset. And he didn't do it just with the personnel. And I mean, as far as the players are concerned, he did it with the coaches, the OCs, the positional coaches, everything, full overhaul. He goes and gets Gus Malzahn to go run the offense. He goes and gets Tony White to run the defense. Tony White coming over from Nebraska, top 25 defensive caliber defensive coordinator. That's what he builds. And Gus Malzahn is all offensive minded, of course, head coach at UCF. He comes over and he brings some players with him as well. You mentioned it with Deuce Robinson coming over, Squirrel White coming over from Tennessee, but he also brings over the tight end for UCF as well. So from a passing positional standpoint, they're good. And then we'll see if Tommy Castellanos is going to be the guy for them. And actually, he's not probably the most stellar and universal quarterback talent that we'd ever see in the ACC. But we'll see if that team can actually move the football and get it done. O-line was completely overhauled and transferred, but they got a lot of starter experience. They must have emptied their wallets and really tried to build this team up with a lot of better players. Defense is completely overhauled as well to kind of mirror what Tony White wants his defense to be. You got to face a Bama team that wants their pound of flesh. They didn't make the playoffs last year, so that's going to be a tough one in week 1. 5 road games, including Florida, Clemson, and a tough matchup versus Miami at home. They're going to want Miami bad in that one. And then, of course, the total wins was 7.5. And I think it's justified, in my opinion. 4 or 5 win-loss team based on some of the teams they have to play in their schedule. So they could win 7 games. They could win 9 games. It's very much up for grabs. But I'll tell you this. There ain't no way, shape, or form that this team is just going to win 2 games again. I think this team is going to be bowl caliber, 7-win team. That's where I see with Florida State. Let's go into the next one. Georgia Tech. Wow. I'm in love with that team. Love what Brent Key's doing over there. I was very high on them early on. I said in week 0, you can take Georgia Tech on the money line. I love that team so much with Haynes King and the boys. A lot of key weapons, lost. Of course, Eric Singleton jumping ship going to Auburn. A very, very good season for Brent Key. A winner in his own, great coach. But the question is, are they going to be going upward or downward? I'll start with you, Coach.
Yeah, you mentioned love for Georgia Tech, man. I'm right behind you. Brent Key, if you know the story, Jeff Collins just kind of wasn't getting it done. And Brent Key took over late in that season, won, 2-3 games towards the end of that season, and then back-to-back 7 and 6 seasons. And again, another institution where Georgia Tech, this is the Georgia Institute of Technology. Like, you got to have some smarts to get into this school. But again, another program that has to recognize, you're not Clemson, and you're not some of these elite teams in the conference. So, 7-win season. That's not bad. Do they get there again? I think so. Haynes King is a stud. Haynes King worked out a lot this summer with my guy that's at Purdue. And this kid's, I mean, he's a good one. He's tough. He's smart. He can run the ball just as well as he can throw it. And in a Brent Key style offense, if you know anything about, Brent Key, he was an offensive lineman, and he is a guy who just like he's going to live on running a football, and that's what they do best. They were second in the conference in rush offense last year. I think they were top 30, if I'm not mistaken. They do get the running back this year, Jamal Haynes. The question will probably be on defense. 3-4 starters back. The D coordinator's gone. He brought in a guy. I mean, if you follow college football, you might know the name Blake Gideon. But I remember watching him as he was a D-back at Texas. So it'd be interesting to see how he does in his first year. He does have an all-ACC linebacker back in Kyle Efford. I will mention this. I used to work with a guy a long time ago. He says, you can't win a championship without a long snapper and a good kicker. And I was like, yeah, I don't need a kicker, but probably do need a long snapper. But Georgia Tech has an outstanding kicker, a kid by the name of Aiden Barr. He's back. I think he's 82 out of 83 on extra points, which, I'd get on him for missing one. But anyway, they get Clemson at home, and they will play at Duke. They don't play SMU or Louisville. They play their end-of-season game with Georgia. That's a big rivalry. They almost beat them last year.
Great game.
Yeah, just this is a team. Like, this team goes out and competes, and that's Brent Key. Like, we're going to go out, we're going to compete, and we're going to run the football. And this year, if they play better defense, I believe that they can get over their win total, which it's 7.5. It is juiced to the over, which, I think the books are saying, hey, we like this team too. It's going to come down, it'll come down to a couple key moments in the schedule. But I think they can get there if the defense improves.
Yeah, I think this is like not only a team that we can talk about with the win total. I think this is a team. There's situationally. There's like I counted like 3 or 4 games on the board that I like, and I'm going to be eyeing on where the line's going to be, and I think it's going to be either a play or it could be a free play. But I'll definitely be talking about Georgia Tech throughout the season. And you mentioned Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, they're all back. The wide receiver Singleton, he jumped ship, but they get Malik Rutherford back, and they add a FIU's best receiver too to kind of flow into the mix. So I think that's a good addition there. Even though Singleton was just kind of this key weapon that did a little bit of everything for him, I think they'll be okay there. Offensive line will take a little bit of a step back. Their top because they're losing their top 2 guys. Rebuilt with transfers, so we'll see if they can gel. But I trust Brent Key. I think he can. He's done good as far as with the offensive coordinator he brought in last year. I talked about it on a lot of preview shows that was the big change on this one, is really kind of emphasizing blocking. Same thing with the defensive side too. So they made the right changes to kind of get better, and it showed in the wins, right? So 42nd toughest schedule. They got to go road games are Wake Forest, Duke, NC State, and Boston College. They do draw Clemson and UGA. UGA they're going to draw every year. But they get them in the situation they want at home. And then 7 wins last season, 2 close losses. The 8 overtime one was the biggest one. I thought they had their back against the wall, but Carson Beck got it done for them. Maybe a little bit scared. Very attainable to get this win total, and it's heavily juiced for a reason. I think this team's on the upward slide. 7 wins. I think this is a team that's going to contend to maybe get a position to be I'll say maybe in the ACC championship. We shall see. I love the talent on this team. I do love Brent Key, but there is going to be some good things happening there with the Yellow Jackets. All right, let's go into the next game on the board. Let's talk Louisville Cardinal football, baby. Now, Jeff Brome back again. Some changes with the offense as well. Tyler Show and their top wide receiver gone. Miller Moss comes over from USC and he says, "Give me the ball. I got you." Is that going to be enough to get Louisville to the ACC championship and be a contender for a college football playoff spot? I'll ask you, Coach Rick. What are your thoughts?
I think the playoff thing's a stretch, although they should compete for an ACC title. Will they end up playing Clemson in a championship? I don't know. I don't think so, just because of the schedule. But let me run through Louisville. So Jeff Brom, you mentioned him, great coach, from Louisville, went to Trinity High School, played there, the whole family, like if you know the Brom name, like, that's Louisville football. He actually recruited my guy that's at Purdue when he was the head coach there, and wanted him to come to Louisville. But anyway, he's 2 years, he's 19-8. He plays a certain style of football, certain style of offense, and it begins with the quarterback. And I think he has a good one. Miller Moss, he started several games for USC last season. Good enough. And Jeff Brom's a good enough coach that I think he can, make Miller Moss do what he wants, and to move the football and score points. He does have the thing that people may not realize about Brom and the whole family of coaches is that they really rely on running the football. Maybe it's a little bit different than some other offenses, but they want to turn around and hand the ball off to, and they've got two good ones, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson. I think they were both freshmen last year, combined for a boatload of yards, a little over 1,700, I think, and 18 touchdowns. So both those guys are back. Only one starter, I believe, on the offensive line, but it's an offense that just under Brom always seems to do well. Kind of like Bobby Petrino, even when he was, back when he was at Louisville. Like, it just seemed to always have good offenses. Again, question will be defensively. Only 4 starters back, I think. The pass defense at Louisville was horrendous last year, really. I mean, if they don't get better defending the pass, they're going to have some issues, and I think that's one reason why they aren't playing for a title or an ACC title. The non-conference schedule, in my opinion, is pretty easy. They should, well, I shouldn't say easy because they do play James Madison, but Eastern Kentucky's an FCS team. They'll play Bowling Green. Those games are at home. They don't play Duke, but they're going to, they're going at the end of the schedule. It's going to determine whether or not they're playing for a conference championship. They're going to get Clemson at home. They'll travel to SMU. Clemson, they actually beat at Clemson last year. So you can bet your ass that Dabo's coming in there, and the Tigers are going to want a piece of that. So it's a tough one. They'll play at Miami as well. We'll talk about Virginia Tech in a minute. Playing there isn't fun either. So do they get to the ACC title game? I don't see it. I think there's a few other teams that have a little bit more advantageous schedule. Their win total, I see at 8.5. It is juiced to the over. I don't want to touch it. I'm not, can they be a 9-win team again? Yeah, absolutely. But that 9th win might have to come from a bowl game like it did last year. So that's, right. That doesn't, it doesn't win our ticket. So, I'd pass on that. And like I said, I don't think they get to the ACC title game. But we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. I see like 3 key games on the schedule that are going to be the toughest. It's Miami, SMU, and Clemson. Miller Moss coming in there, lost his job at the Trojans. He comes over. Running back core remains intact, so that should be a strong group. Some of the changes will be at wide receiver, but they should be on the same level. So offensive, from an offensive standpoint, I think they're fine. And you look at their schedule from it's in the top 40 as far as strength of schedule is concerned, but they don't really see a P5 school or P4 school until the end of September. They get a real soft schedule to kind of warm up into the month, and then at the end of the month, they'll start to get into conference play, and that's where they're going to see some talent. 8 regular season wins last year, 4 losses were in 7 points or less, so it usually means an uptick upward, and you're seeing 8.5 for a reason, so I think the books are trying to tell you that too. The win total was exactly 8.5 last year too, indicating more success, so it did just go a shy under last year. So soft non-conference schedule. The fact that Jeff Brom is 12-5 straight up versus ACC opponents, that's kind of key as well. This team has the capabilities of getting W's. Like I said, 3 key games on the schedule are going to make or break it. But if you're only saying this team is a 3-loss to 4-loss team, I mean, if we do the math, it's going to come down. It could come down to the last game here and there. But this team is going to be a competitor. It's going to be a top 5 type of elemented team. But there's a lot of talent and a lot of changes. You got a Georgia Tech, you got a Miami, you got a Clemson. I mean, this is tough for Louisville. They're either in there or they're not. I think the Miami game is going to be very fun to watch. Remember last year, 1,000 yards of total offense in that game, 52-45 was the angle in that one. Absolute shootout. And speaking of shootout, we're going to the Canes, Miami. Changes have been made at Miami. Cristobal. Everybody's looking at Miami. They were looking at rose-colored glasses. Now they're looking at shit-colored glasses, I think. Changes have been made. Pockets have been empty. Cam Ward, a Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 pick of the draft, gone. Carson back in. Is Carson Beck the guy? Is Carson Beck going to be able to get this team into a top of the mountain? ACC championship, college football playoff. He's already been to a college football playoff. Well, kind of. But I'll pass it to you, Coach. What do you think about the Miami Hurricanes?
I think everybody sees what everyone sees, right? You see, Cam Ward gone, receivers gone. You see all the losses, and you want to just kind of sell on Miami. Well, don't. Like this, I think Miami will be better than everyone thinks. Their win total set at 9.5. Do I think they're a 10-win team? No, I don't. But I think they're going to be better than what you might think going into the season. 10 wins last year. They did lose their bowl game. Cristobal, that was his best season. I mean, he's doing an okay job. They lose a ton of talent, and it's not just Cam Ward. I think there's only a total of 6 or 7 starters between the offense and defense. But you mentioned Carson Beck. I'm not a fan of Carson Beck, but the guy has won games. I mean, there's something to be said for guys that can go and win games, especially in the SEC. I don't know how he's going to perform. He had UCL. He had the Tommy John surgery that MLB guys have. So I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be able to throw well. I don't think he'll be asked to do what Cam Ward did, though. Their offensive coordinator, Shannon Brown, I think he's going to rely a little bit more on the run this season. I think you'll see a heavy dose of that, especially since the top 5 wide receivers are gone. I'll let you talk about that. I know there's a couple guys in the portal that came in. But Miami season comes down to this. Fix the damn defense. Like 30 points or more in 5 of their 8 ACC games. They do that this year. Mario Cristobal is getting shit canned. Because they don't have an offense that can score 35. They averaged 44 points a game last year. They don't have an offense that can do that. They can't win the shootout this year. You're going to have to play some defense. And the thing is I think they will. So they brought in a new defensive coordinator. Corey Heatherman, if you don't know the name, go to YouTube, look up Minnesota Defense 2024, and watch the Gophers rip people a new ass. And he's just a hardcore, hard-nosed, we're going to play tough, we're going to line up correctly, we're going to execute properly, and we're going to play great defense. Everywhere he's been, he's done that. And now he's got all these athletes at Miami, all these Florida kids that come, and I'm sure he's got guys from other states, but just so much talent there. I think with Heatherman as a DC, I think they are better on defense. Are they a 10-win team? I don't think they're a 10-win team. But like I said, I think they're going to be better than you think. I'll let you talk about the schedule. I think they miss a couple of the upper echelon teams, but this is not a 10-win team, but this is definitely a bowl team. And I don't think it's a team that will contend for the ACC title this season. But maybe they're a year or two away. We'll see.
Yeah. it's weird when you look at their win total because it seems like every year everybody's high on Miami. Everybody's like saying, this is the year, the talent's back. I'm not feeling the warm and fuzzies with this team so much, but the win total is 9.5. I mean, so maybe I'm a little bit wrong there. We'll have to see. Quarterback comes back, Carson back. He has the ability to be a good quarterback, and with Mario Cristobal, kind of this offensive generated mind coming over from Oregon, they seem to be able to develop quarterbacks pretty well in those systems. So maybe there's going to be some rub off there on that one because it's a little bit different than what you're doing at Georgia. A little bit more power running and then a little bit of the pass kind of complementing it. The running back, Damian Martinez, gone. That's kind of a huge loss, but they do still have Mark Fletcher. And if you know his numbers, he had 5.2 yards per carry last season. So if you give him the brunt of the carries, I think he'll show that he's going to be a successful back. And you mentioned the DC coming in from Minnesota. They do lose a lot of the talent on that Miami defense, if there was any. But they had to rebuild. They had to shape everything. A lot of transfers coming in, transfers in the secondary to rebuild. Still a little bit of a question if they'll all gel together, but you have a good defensive coordinator that can do it. Question is, can he do it right away? Because you have to go at home week 1. You got to play my guys, Notre Dame, a team that was in the national championship last year. That's going to be a very huge barometer of where things are going to go. And then you got Florida in week 4, and Florida's going to want that pound of flesh, and Florida is very good. So you have this tough early September schedule that's going to make or break you. And then the road game at SMU, but the rest of their schedule is very winnable. So that's probably why the win total is so high. You're looking at maybe 3 games on the board that can really kill you, and then the rest are going to be fine. Now, Miami won 10 regular season games last year. Win total is 9.5 there for a reason, and they're saying basically they could get 2 wins out of the 3 group of Notre Dame, Florida, and SMU. We'll see how it goes for this team. I like the changes they made, but Cristobal's got to win. If he doesn't get there, you said it, Coach. He's on his ass and he's filling out his resume and trying to find another place to go.
Yep.
All right. We've talked too much about good teams. Let's talk about a team that's going to be lackluster at best. What is going on with the hiring at UNC? I'm going to be very confused probably for the first 4 weeks when I see Bill Belichick on the sideline wearing all the Tar Heel baby blue and trying to coach a bunch of college athletes when he's been coaching pros all his career. A different scenario for him. He brings in his son to run the DC. He was running the DC over at Washington. A lot of changes, a lot of turnover. I'm not sure about this team, Coach. You tell me. Show me some clarity about UNC.
Here's your clarity. Here's North Carolina in a nutshell, right? It's probably January, I think. Early January, somewhere, maybe February. I can't remember exactly when. I'm on the phone with the guy that I was telling you about that was on the field with Flutie and played at BC, right? So his son is the guy that I coached who's going to start at Purdue at quarterback. His name's Ryan. I'm on the phone with his dad, and his dad says, "Hey, I got to go." Bill Belichick's on the phone. Okay. Of course, that tells me how I rate, whatever. I gotta talk to Bill. Anyway, so Belichick, they brought my guy in as a QB in the off season, and he did an outstanding job. I watched film of the spring game, which really wasn't a game; it was a practice, and he threw a bunch of touchdowns and did some great stuff. And that night, I find out that they're looking in the transfer portal for another quarterback. Like, what? Are you serious? So, maybe I'm a little biased, but I hope if they go 0-12, awesome. That'd be great because they're going to start a kid at quarterback. And I'm sorry to, no offense, Gio Lopez, but Gio Lopez is about 5'10", does not run 4.48 and a 40 like my guy. And he did okay at South Alabama. Sure, you got experience. That's great. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's left-handed too, which I don't like left-handed QBs. But I think that's a drop off in QB, and it's a drop off from what they had last year too. I think they don't return many guys. Jake Johnson's probably their best player on offense, tight end. I will say this: they will be better defensively. If you know anything about North Carolina, they have been awful on defense for the last several years. They could light it up and score, but they just couldn't stop anyone. But they did bring in some dudes that can play some defense in the offseason. So I expect they'll be better defensively. But the win total is 7.5. So you're going to get 8 wins. You're going to open a season with TCU. Okay, it's at home. Great. Now you'll beat Charlotte and Richmond is an FCS school. But you're going to play Clemson. You're going to play Duke. You're going to have that rivalry game at NC State. No, he's going to have a rough time too. And I'm sure you can talk about how he's 77, 85 years old and banging a 24-year-old, like whatever he's trying to. I don't know, maybe whatever he's doing to do that. There's just been so many distractions with that. I don't know. Like you mentioned too. I mean, he's been coaching professional athletes his entire life. Like now you're dealing with 18 to 22, 23-year-old kids. It's a lot different. It's a lot. Ask Nick Saban.
Yep. This is a weird one. Weird dynamic to even start with this team. I mean, the distractions with Jordan on the sidelines and whatever she's doing to kind of mold him and basically listen. She might be coaching the team for all I know. She might be in the booth just giving the play calls. I don't know. We'll see. But the Bill Belichick era begins at UNC. Freddie Kitchen comes in to run the offense. Steve Belichick comes to run the defense. It's just going to look a lot different. Top running back gone, Amarian Hampton. He's gone. Jacoby Criswell gone. Gio Lopez, you mentioned him. Their backup is Max Johnson. Max Johnson's been around for 18 years at this point. He's been to 13. I think he's been at all 4 conferences too. I know he was at LSU. I was trying to remember all the teams he was with. I was like, I think he was at A&M maybe, and he was at LSU. And now he's at UNC, lo and behold. So offensive line loses 2 starters. They're built back through the portal. Defense overhauled. Schedules favorable for a UNC team. They don't have to face LSU, Miami, or SMU. So you have to face Clemson at home. So you get teams in certain situations. But is that team good enough to beat these other squads? I'm not really sure. I just think this team might be in disarray. And you said it, Coach, when you bring in like coaching professional athletes is much, much different than coaching kids. Guys that have gone through a high school program, you kind of have to teach them a little bit harder than you have to teach guys in the pros that already kind of know some of the play callings. You have to change their nuances a little bit to kind of get them to evolve quicker. But this is just a team I don't want to mess with right now. How are they a 7.5 win team? That's what I was trying to figure out. It's plus 130 if you want to take the over. I wouldn't take the over with this team at all. Maybe a bowl team if they're lucky, but I mean this disaster of a hire and a disaster of a coaching personnel. And if you have a bad coaching personnel, you ain't going anywhere in college football. All right, next one on the board. We're going NC State with Dave Doran coming back. Seems like he's been there forever. Brings back his QB and CJ Bailey, top running back, Hollywood Smothers. You talk about some names here, folks. I love a good college name. Hollywood Smothers fits the bill. They also get 3 out of their 4 top receivers back, so the offense looks very intact. New defense is going to be changing some things, but 7 returning starters there. My God, is this team going to be good enough to get 8 or 9 wins? I don't know what the win total is on this one. It's set at looks like 6.5. Are they going to get to over 6.5? That's to you, Coach. What do you think?
I like Dave Doran, man. You mentioned him, and yeah, he has been there a while. It's 12 seasons. probably one of the more underrated coaches in the country, and I'll applaud him for staying at NC State because he's had the opportunity to leave. But he's a guy who gets the most out of the talent that he gets, because NC State, I mean, yeah, it's a solid program, but they're not going to get the elite of the elite in the Mid-Atlantic or the South. Guys are going to go to different schools. They're not going to go to NC State. But he is 87-65 in 12 seasons. Last year, they lost the bowl game, so that was the first losing season at NC State since 2019. You mentioned C.J. Bailey started 8 games last year. He's legit. I mean, that's a good QB, and all-name team Hollywood, man. Solid running back there. Up front, they are going to have to mold some new offensive linemen. The tight end is going to be very good. Justin Jolie, I think he's their leading returning receiver. You mentioned the defense. Ton of dudes back. The problem is they better have improved since last season, because that was kind of the downfall of last year's team, was the defense. They did give up just under 31 points a game. So if they can get better on defense, which Dave Doran teams, typically when he's a kind of a 6-7 type team, the following year, they kind of fix things. This year, though, the schedule, man, so you're going to have to go to Duke, which, that's not a gimme anymore. And we just talked about them, and I think they're going to be a very good football team. Notre Dame, we'll talk about. They play at Notre Dame, touchdown Jesus. They're going to play at Pitt, which we'll talk about next, at Miami, and then you're going to play Clemson too. You do get them at home, but I mean that's tough. I mean, you don't play SMU or at Louisville. Well, okay, great, but man, that's a tough one. So they're going to have to navigate that. They do have East Carolina as a non-conference game. I think they play an FCS school somewhere in there. Can they get to 6.5? I think that line's sharp. They're either a 6 or 7 win team. Knowing Dave Doran, I would think that they could get over the 6.5, just based on what they did last year. I think he like I said, he's just a great coach where he struggled one year and he turns it around. So that line's pretty sharp. I don't want to touch it, because like I said, this is either a 6 or 7 win football team, and we'll see how they play.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. That's what I got my notes. I said this team, I'll talk about where I think they're going to be projected as far as early season, and then they may have some devaluation as they get to the back half of the season. But yeah, most of the offense is going to be coming back, top running back, top quarterback, receivers. They lose 3 starters on the O-line, but they got some experience coming back. New OC as well, new defensive taking over the squad as well. New DC, 7 returning starters, so you get some of the guys back. Solid, but their secondary from last year is gone, so they have to rebuild the secondary a little bit. So that's going to be a little bit of a question, but it's going to come down to the schedule. Last year, 6 wins. Out of their 6 wins, 3 of them were within a possession or less. So they lost some close games. That could have been a 9-win season for Dave Doran. Their total is 6.5, but you're getting plus money, so it's more juice towards the under. And prior to last season, if you take that out of the window, he was averaging 8.5 wins in his last 4 years. So he is a winner. Can he get over the 6.5? The path for him, I still believe that there is a path for him to go 6-0 to start the season. And then you're going to have to find 1 win between these teams. Pittsburgh, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, and UNC. I think you can find 2 or 3 in there. You might not find more than that, but I think that the over, knowing Dave Doran's history, he should be able, after what I would be considered a tough season for him, I think he gets it done. He's got a couple of revenge spots too, Duke being one and Wake Forest being another. So he'll come back for his pound of flesh. All right, we added a game. I know this team is not in the ACC. I get it. We have to talk about the Irish. By God, we're not going to go through a whole entire conference preview and not talk about my Irish. I'm wearing the jersey. I'm wearing the hat. Coming off a national championship run. They were the runner-up. They lost to a very good, very hungry Ohio State team. I got a lot of notes. I got no notes. It's all up here, buddy. I'll pass it to you, Coach Rick. Let's go.
The Irish.
Irish.
I can, God. Just coming off an outstanding season. Marcus Freeman is just tremendous as a football coach. And if you haven't seen it, you go to Peacock and watch the documentary about Notre Dame. You'll get an inside look at Marcus Freeman, how he runs his program. I mean, this is legit. Like I would not be surprised if they're right back playing for another title this year. The question is going to be, is CJ Carr good enough? When CJ Carr's from right here, he played at Saline High School in Michigan. He actually came to our training facility as a young freshman. I remember having him, and you could tell. I mean, the kid was talented, and he's going to be a good one. We'll see how quickly he develops. They're going to your boys are going to go to Miami to start the season. And he's going to get introduced to college football. I think he'll hold his own. It'll take some time. Young quarterbacks always take time, but I think he'll be all right. He's got a solid core up front, 4 offensive line starters, I believe. And again, when you have guys up front that are experienced, they've played together, especially when you're playing a Notre Dame schedule. I mean, these guys are studs. There's tons of Notre Dame offensive linemen that end up in the NFL, and I'm sure they've got a guy or two that is going to end up at the next level. The wide receiver, the Great House kid, he's a good one. But it's the running back core Jeremiah Love is. So last year, I'm not sure if I played it every game, but I played it almost every game was Jeremiah Love for an anytime touchdown. So if you can find that bet, like you're probably going to want to get on that one again this year. And don't forget Jadarian Price too. So both of them, they 1,800 and some yards combined, I believe. So offensively, they're going to be solid because they can run the football. And as long as they can run the football, they take a little bit of pressure off CJ Carr so that he can kind of get his feet wet and get acclimated to playing big-time college football. Defensively, here's a great one. Here's a great story. New defense coordinator, Chris Ash. I met Chris Ash when Chris Ash was, I think, about 3 years old. Actually, I played for his dad a long time ago. So his dad was a long-time college football coach. And so Chris now, he's been a DC before. He's been at Ohio State. I think he was a head coach for a minute. But solid defensive guy. So I don't think they'll miss a beat. Notre Dame defensively, they were, third in the country in scoring D, 10th in total. Like, they're going to be a top 10 defense again. 4, 5, 6, maybe 6 starters on defense. Tons of experience and tons of talent. This is a program that kids want to go play for Notre Dame, especially now because you're playing for championships. So the win total is it's up there. It's 10.5. The schedule, like I said, at Miami, they're going to play A&M in week 1. There's a couple games on the schedule that they play every year. They always play Purdue. It seems they play Navy. They're at Pitt. And if you know the deal, Notre Dame plays 5 ACC teams, I think, each year, right? And then, at Stanford, there's some, they're going to play USC at home. There's some ones that, you can kind of check off as wins, but, can they get to 10.5? Can they get to 11? Yeah, I don't see why not, as long as CJ Carr, can navigate himself early in the season. Is it a win total I want to place a bet on? No. I think I'd rather bet on Notre Dame to make the playoff, which I'd have to look at the price now because it's probably – you might have been priced out of that by now. But, and unfortunately they can't win a conference title because they're not in one.
Right.
So, anyway, I'll let you – you can talk – this is your team, your boys.
My team.
I'll let you go off. Have at it.
The win total, I'll say this. I'm not going to be playing the win total. It's 10.5. Any 10.5s out there, I'm not really going to fight over. Any situation, something could happen. And you got CJ Carr that's going to be stepping into the role. He's officially named the starter. And he should have been named the starter from the get-go. I thought he was the best in spring. But I wouldn't even sleep on Kenny Minchie as well. Kenny Minchie's a favorable backup. So I think in the quarterback position, whatever happens, they're in good hands, especially you got this great offensive line that is just significantly depth, even though they lost some of the guys to the transfer portal that just left. I think their center went off to play at Indiana, but that doesn't matter. The team is loaded with talent. Charles Jagusa, who didn't play last year, he got hurt with an ACL injury. He's going to be back in the mix. And then you have and Tony Knapp. If you don't know him, he's going to be a guy that they're going to be talking about the draft boards in the first round. So they're just loaded with lineman talent. And then the wide receivers is kind of key on this one, because if you know anything about a Notre Dame team, they've always been a good run team, but they've never had the wide receivers. They've always had a good tight end they could throw to. They haven't had a good receiver since probably Golden Tate, maybe Floyd back in the day. But now you got Jaden Greathouse, who played exceptional in the playoffs, and they go get a transfer from UVA, Malachi Fields. This guy was a weapon for them, their number one receiver. Now he's in the mix, so they put key weapons. They got Will Paulding from Wisconsin as well. He's a senior, so they're good as far as the wide receivers. Probably the best wide receiver core that I've seen in years from this team. So offensively, they're going to be good heads, especially with Jeremiah Love, who's the number one, considered the number one running back preseason in the league. And then the defense is probably going to be some growing pains as far as the front seven. But they get Jaden Sneed back. He's a veteran with that lineup. And what's going to be the strength of this team is their secondary. Their secondary is absolutely exceptional. They get Devontae Smith from Alabama. He comes over as a transfer. And they got two of the best lockdown corners in the country in Christian Gray and Leonard Moore. I don't know a better duo in college football than those two. They 30% completion rate from both of those guys last year, tons of deflections, interceptions from the wazoo, and they get Aiden Schuler back. He played well at safety last season. So from position to position, I think they're going to be fine on this one. It's going to come down to the first front end of the schedule, right? Because you have to go to Miami, first game of the year. You did it before at College Station week 1. You're going to have to do it again. And you got to do it with a young quarterback this time. You don't get Riley Leonard to who's had that veteran-esque talent there. Then, of course, they get a bye week before they play Texas A&M at home. So that is key on that one. Yeah. Purdue, Arkansas, Boise State, but Boise State a little bit different team this year. Not as explosive as they were, but they're still Boise State nonetheless. But you get these guys at home. USC you get at home. USC's on the come up. You get them at home. So as long as you get a lot of your big games at home, your worst road game is Pittsburgh. And you got to play Stanford on the road and BC on the road. I think they're going to be able to get it done. And I think this team is going to make another run for the playoffs. I think they should be, if they can get past that first 6 weeks, should be undefeated and maybe get a bye week. And then we'll see what happens. Playoff shuffle, always a little bit of a different scenario. But I love this team. This is one of the better teams that I've seen in a while. I was not as high as I am this year, just because I think the quarterback, and you got Denbrook, who's got a quarterback that he can actually use. Couldn't use Leonard last year. They made him just run RPOs. If you watch that first drive for Ohio State, all they did was just push the line and just make Leonard run. Very different scenario with Carr. We'll see what happens with this one, but I think this team is going to contend for a national championship once again. Let's see if they make the playoffs first, and then maybe take some futures with the Irish. All right. I digress. Let's go into another team. Let's go to Pittsburgh. The Panthers with Nate Narduzzi. Woo-wee. Love this coach. Talk about coaches that have been a while. Usually we talk about these conferences, and a lot of the coaches get shuffled, but not the ACC. They stick with their guys. A lot of talent back from this Pitt team, including Eli Holstein. Desmond Reed comes back, 3 out of their top 4 receivers. Offensively, they look great. But are they going to be good enough to contend in the ACC to get past their win total? Coach, what do you think?
Well, now I get to go off. The Pitt program, of course, near and dear to my heart. I grew up about 60 miles east of Pittsburgh and grew up basically with Pitt and Penn State football, but I was closer to Pittsburgh, so I got to see more Pitt Panther games than I did Penn State. And if you go back in the day, I'll date myself, and I was able to watch guys like Tony Dorsett and Dan Marino and Hugh Green and et cetera, et cetera. Some great football players have come out of Pitt. I hope the next one will be one of my QBs. He's a freshman there. His name is Bo Jackson. Not that Bo Jackson, no. But yeah, about 10 years ago, his dad and I worked together in our training organization, and he asked me one day, "Hey, can Bo, come in with your older guys?" I said, "Yeah, whatever." And so we're doing a drill, and of course, Bo screws up. I said, "Bo, what are you, 10? Why can't you get this right?" And he looks up and he says, "Well, yeah, I am 10." So he was 10 years old working with the high school kids. I'm like, holy shit. But now he's, back then he was about 5'2", and now he's 6'4" and about 215, and he'll be a freshman. He won't play this year. This is his first year at Pitt. But Eli Holstein will play, and Eli Holstein may be the best QB in the ACC. And I think Pitt, if there's a surprise team in the ACC this season, it could be the Panthers. Eli Holstein, Alabama transfer, awesome, outstanding, 1,800 yards, bunch of touchdowns. Pitt was 7-0. Then he gets hurt. He just struggled. And then Pitt struggled. They lost their last 6 games of the season. But this is an offense, like if you watched Pitt, if you watched them through those first 7 games, Cade Bell, the offensive coordinator. So Narduzzi, they just were terrible offensively. Narduzzi said, "Hey, I need a change." So he went out and he hired Cade Bell from an FCS school. Cade Bell is Kerwin Bell's son, which no one cares, but Kerwin Bell is an old Florida QB, which I happen to know because why do I know this stuff? I'm the coach, But anyway, Cade Bell. So they run this offense. It's kind of up tempo and it's spread, and they run the ball and they throw it quite a bit. Holstein's very good at it. They've got a running back that can run it. He's kind of small, but man, he's shifty. And Desmond Reed is one of the probably more dangerous players in the country. And he's a guy that had I think he was in the top 7, 8, 10 in all-purpose yards last year. So he had almost 1,000 rushing, almost 600 receiving, and he also returned punts. So he's on the field a lot. They're very dangerous. They scored 33 points a game last year, and that's after, losing the QB and playing 6 games where they were kind of mediocre offensively. If you know anything about Pat Narduzzi is a defensive guru. And Narduzzi was actually the defensive coordinator here at Michigan State for several years. So if you remember when the Spartans were winning 10, 11 games every year, he was the guy running the defense, a lot of cover 4, a lot of things that they were doing then that people weren't doing. And Pitt, if you've paid attention the last couple of years, not every year, but they've been very good defensively. And, years ago, they had a guy by the name of Aaron Donald, who, Penn Hills High School out of Pittsburgh, a lot of my friends from there. But they've had some great defensive players. They got another good one, actually several good ones. But, if you're looking for a name, this kid's good. Kyle Lewis is an all-ACC linebacker. He was 3rd in the Defensive Player of the Year voting. He was an All-American. He's only a sophomore. He's good. The kid playing next to him is an all-ACC caliber player. 7 starters come back. This is a defense that can shut teams down. And then you go look at the schedule. Pitt will not play Duke. Pitt will not play SMU. Georgia Tech's not on the schedule, and they don't play Clemson. They avoid them. So, this may be off the wall, but it's a bet that I think I'm going to take a look at. And it's Pitt to play in the ACC championship game. They'll play Louisville at home. Notre Dame's non-conference game, but that's at home. And then they'll get Miami at home as well. So, they're going to start the year most likely 2-0. They get Duquesne, which is, right in Pittsburgh. They're going to play them at home. That's a win. They're an FCS school. They'll play Central Michigan. They'll have a new coach, and they're kind of, and then they're going to have the backyard brawl. They're going to go down to Morgantown and, try to open a can of whoop ass on the Mountaineers with Rich Rod coming back. So, 3-0 maybe going into the ACC season. Their win total 6.5. It's juiced to the under. I'm playing the over. They're going to. I think they get to 7, 8. The schedule's favorable. There's a few games. At Syracuse. I don't think Syracuse is going to be very good this year. We'll talk about them later. Stanford could be a trash bag. But Pitt, surprise team. I like the over 6.5. Like I said, I think I'm going to find the Panthers to get to the ACC championship. You know, they won one with Narduzzi, 2021. Kenny Pickett was the QB.
That's right.
Can they get there again? Tell me, Guns. What is it?
I like this team. I do. You can get to win the ACC championship right now. You can get Pittsburgh at plus 4,500.
There you go.
So, I mean, I like this. I like how this team. I liked Eli Olstein until he got hurt. Desmond Reed, I like their wide receivers. I do love their defense, and you mentioned it. That linebacker core is stout, man. They're all back. One of the best linebacker groups in the country, not just the ACC, the country. That's how good this linebacker core is. That's Narduzzi ball. Narduzzi just knows how to cultivate a defense. Schedule not that bad. Their road games are going to be the backyard brawl, West Virginia. They're going to have Florida State. Cuse is not going to be that good this year. You mentioned it. We'll talk about them. Stanford, Georgia Tech. Their draws. They also draw Louisville, Notre Dame, and Miami. So to me, when I look at their schedules, they have this gauntlet at the end of the year. They got to play Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and Miami. That's going to be a huge undertaking for 3 games in a row. And they just got to stay healthy. That was the biggest thing with that team last year. They found 7 wins, but then they lost their final 5 games of the season with 2 close losses. So it had to do with injuries on the offensive line and the QB. That's what made that team kind of fall off the cliff. But now they're healthy. Now they're back. Can they stay healthy? Can they get through a season? We shall see. But I'm with you. 6.5 is just too low for this team. I think they get over the hump on this one. Even though it's plus money, take the value on it. I just think that the over is the way I play this one on this show. All right, let's go about the next play here. Let's go SMU. The Stangs coming off a remarkable season, coming over to the ACC. They go to the championship. They lose to Clemson, but don't fret. They get to the college football playoff. Well, they got their butts whipped by Penn State, but they got to the playoff nonetheless. Brett Lashley coached his butt off, coached his tail off, and he brings back Kevin Jennings at his quarterback position. I'll start with you, Coach. What do you think about the Mustangs this season?
This is actually probably one of the great stories in college football, where you have a program that basically got fired. SMU, if you don't know, back in the day, they were doing what teams do now legally. And they were paying players back in, 83, 84, 85. The Pony Express was, God, I loved Eric Dickerson. But they didn't play football for a year or two, and they had to rebuild the program from scratch. And it took a long time. But this is a program that's back. You mentioned Brett Lashley's just done a great job. I mean, 2 11-3 seasons back to back, 22-6 over the last 2 seasons, just outstanding. Make it to the ACC championship game in their first season in the conference. That's awesome. And now you line yourself up and set yourself up for success again with just a bunch of starters back on offense. I believe 6, 3 on the offensive line, and a lot of experience up front too. And it's always about the quarterback. When you got an experienced guy who's been there, he played in an ACC championship last year. He played in a college football playoff game. Kevin Jennings. I mean, the guy can get it done. So he'll have a couple new receivers. Jordan Hudson and I think Romello Brinson are 2 guys that are actually those guys were in the program. They're guys that have been there who will step in and replace the guys that they lose from last year. I think the question will be the defense for SMU. The defense was actually very good last year. Again, we talked about elite programs, and they seem to throw the ball all around and run up and down and play great offense, but a lot of them play really good defense too. And SMU actually surprisingly was really good on defense. And they've got a couple of edge rushers that are back. Cameron Robertson's one. Those 2 guys probably going to set the tone. They are all ACC type players, but he only has 2 or 3 starters back on defense. So a lot of guys to replace. Schedule, the non-conference schedule is pretty light. I think they might play 2 FCS teams. I think they have Missouri State and, if I'm not mistaken, East Texas A&M, which okay. But you're gonna rack up a couple wins there. The problem is the win total set at 8.5. It's pretty sharp, I think. I mean, this is a team that can get 9 wins again. They don't play Duke. They don't play Georgia Tech. They will play at Clemson. That's probably going to be the big one. You get a rematch of last year's title game. They get Miami and Louisville. They have to play them as well at home. It's going to come down to defense. I think it's a drop off. I think from last year's defense. I think they struggle at least early. If they can fix their defense, maybe they can get to that win total. I don't see how. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, this one's tough. It's just because there's a lot of turnover with that team. I mean, you get Kevin Jennings back, but you lose your top running back and you lose your top 2 wide receivers. Offensive line kind of looks solid. They do get 3 starters back. They get a veteran from Arkansas, a few transfers, so experience shouldn't drop off. But a lot of new weapons are going to have to step into the mix. And their defense is going to be completely rebuilt off transfers. So there's just a lot of question marks on all levels with this team, but it is a Rhett Lashley team. I don't expect them to be 2-10 like Florida State, but it's going to be tough to get back to that level that you were last year. But the schedule is very favorable for them. I think that's going to be what the key is. You mentioned the FCS opponents they got in September. The road games: TCU, Clemson, Wake Forest, BC, and Cal. 11-win season and a college football playoff bid, and their win total is 8.5 this year. So they should get to 9 wins. I think they might get there. I just trust the coach and I trust the quarterback enough, and I think the talent they got in there are experienced enough to kind of hold it together. But it's just going to be tough to see with the amount of talent that's going on with the ACC right now. I can't really project where SMU is going to be at the end of the year. I just don't think they're going to be that 11-win team that they were last year. A little bit of a drop off, but they're still going to compete at a high level. Let's go this team. Let's go to Stanford. What happened with Stanford? That's all I can say. We have Andrew Luck like being the GM there. What is he doing over there? They don't even really have a coach. They have an interim coach in Frank Reich. He's going to be taking over. A new OC. It's undetermined who's going to be the starting quarterback. I don't know if they've even announced that yet, but it's probably somebody I don't even know. This team just full of question marks up and down the board. Probably going to end up dead last in the ACC. That's my opinion, but I'll pass it to you, Coach. What do you think?
Yeah, Stanford could be this year's trash bag. But I think at some point they'll start to turn the corner because who goes to Stanford? Like all the smart kids, right? So, you hire Andrew Luck, which is a step in the right direction. So he's the GM, like I said before, GM now at all these colleges. They bring in Frank Reich. Frank Reich, he's a Pennsylvania guy. He's a winner, won a Super Bowl. He steps in. It's an interim basis, so he's supposed to be there for a year. I don't know. Does he stay? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So that makes recruiting tough. So hey, I want to go to play at Stanford, but I don't know if the coach is going to be there. That I'm sure that made it difficult. You only have a handful of starters back, both offense and defense. You mentioned the QB. The QB it has been. I'm pretty sure he declared him the starter, but it's Elijah Brown. He's a redshirt freshman. I actually saw him play out in Vegas. We went to the Polynesian Bowl. He played at Mater Dei High School, and he was actually a freshman at the time. Very solid. I followed him through his high school career, and he's a good QB. Again, it's the first time playing college football, so it's going to take him a while to get used to it, especially early on. I mean, they're going to play at Hawaii. That's actually a week 0 game. And then at BYU. I mean, they got a couple of tough ones on the schedule. So, he'll get his feet wet early. We'll see how he does. The skill positions are basically all transfers. Same defensively. They do have a few more starters on defense, but they were awful defensively. And they if you look at last year's schedule, you just go right down, you'll see that they lost 8 of their last 9 games. In 7 of those 9, they gave up 30 or more points, and I think in 4 of the 9 they give up 40 plus. So, when you don't stop anybody, like that's just that's an issue. And then offensively, like I said, you're going to rely on a redshirt freshman quarterback. He's going to have to get his feet wet. I think you got the right guy. I mean, Andrew Luck's hired for a reason. I mean, he's a program guy. I mean, he went to Stanford. He loves the school. That's why he's there. He's going to try and help them win. Frank Reich. I mean, if you want a program to go in the right direction, I'd like to have Frank Reich. I mean, hopefully he stays. So there's some continuity there. But overall, top to bottom, like this is probably the worst team in the ACC. At SMU. They do get a couple teams at home. They're at Miami. I mean, the win total's 3.5, and it's 3.5 for a reason, because they're just not going to be very good. Can they get 4 wins? I don't know. They were favored. They were actually favored when the lines came out. They were favored to beat Hawaii at Hawaii, which I thought was kind of odd. And then, of course, the line is flipped, and Hawaii is a favorite now. So. I mean, even that, like, you got to go to Hawaii and play out there. Tons of distractions and God. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't think they get to 4 wins, but what do I know? I'm just a coach.
I don't think they get to 4 wins either. Mind you, they got 3 wins last year, but that included upsets over Louisville and Syracuse that were 2 good teams last year. They cultivated 2 wins out of thin air. So very different scenario here from a scheduling standpoint. I can't really talk too much about the roster. They do bring back 8 starters on the defense. I guess it's a positive, but that group allowed 413.5 yards per game and 33.7 points per game. So how good was that defense? Not very good. Schedule 3 road games in 4 weeks are coast to coast. They got to do Hawaii, BYU, and UVA. They're just all over the place, flying around to some of these games. They're going from one end of the country to another time zone to another time zone. Absolutely brutal to start the season in September. Road games, SMU, Miami, UNC. They also draw Florida State and Notre Dame, but they get Notre Dame at home. Same thing with Florida State. It's just, I got to get through this season. Then I got to figure out what I'm going to do as far as the head coach environment. I think Frank Reich is a rental. They haven't found their guy. Once they get their guy, then you can kind of start building the program up to where you want it to be. But right now they're in in loophole, whatever, just limbo. Trying to limbo. That's what I was looking for. They're in limbo right now, trying to figure stuff out. This team is not going to be good. I would take the unders, heavily juiced at -170 right now. That's the only way I'd play this one or pass. Let's go to another team here. The Orange of Syracuse, coming off a great season for Fran Brown. Kyle McCord kind of led them to a bowl win, led them to a 9-win season. I call that a success. However, things are going to be changed. Kyle McCord is not there anymore. Top running back and top 3 receivers are also gone. And their replacement is a guy that I'm familiar with and a guy that I kind of like in Steve Angeli. He's been around for a little bit. But I'll start with you, Coach. What do you think about the Syracuse Orange?
Not much. I mean, I will say this. They kind of surprised everybody last year. And I think Pitt is this year's Syracuse. And Syracuse is no way a 10-3 team in 2025. You mentioned Kyle McCord gone. I do like Steve Angeli though. He'll start at QB, so that's a plus. The problem is, the receiving core is. I mean, they're all gone, and he lost the best one of them. Unfortunately, left later in the portal. Trevor Pena went to Penn State, so that it's going to be difficult to produce the type of offense that they did last year with McCord and some of those other guys. So, don't think they'll do well offensively. Defensively, a ton of production gone there as well. I think they only have 2 or 3 starters back. Then you're going to open the season with Tennessee in a neutral site game in Atlanta. Like, have fun with that. I don't think they do well against an SEC team. And then you're going to play at Clemson later in the year, at SMU. They do play Duke. They won 10 games last year. The win total, well, they won 10 with the bowl game. So they won, 9 in the regular season. Now your win total is 5.5. Like, what's that tell you? I think they struggle mightily. Week one, I talked about the week one win. That's your goal, win in week one. Well, you got to play Tennessee. And, Tennessee, may, not be as good as they were last year, but they're definitely a lot better than Syracuse. So they're going to have a tough one in that. Can they win 6 games? God, they'll beat Colgate. They'll beat Colgate. And UConn is not a gimme anymore. Like, Jim Moore is doing a great job there. I mean, that's a program that, it's not been great, but he's got that program. They were in a bowl game last year, so the schedule's tough, I think, for them, and with just the loss of just so much talent is gone on both sides of the ball. I mean, I don't want to touch the win total, but I think Syracuse has a tough time even getting to 500 in the regular season.
Yep. This is 1,000%, and I'll do it as an official pick on the show. I think you take the under in their win total at 5.5. Yeah. This team is not going to make a bowl game. They had a remarkable season, but it was based on the back of a lot of talent that was there, and talent that came in that was just there for a year, and then they bounced. The running back core lacks experience. They do have Steve Angeli, who's been around for a year. I think he's been to 2 playoff games, if I remember correctly. I think he played in that game against Alabama when he was a freshman or sophomore or something like that. So he's been he's an older guy that's got a lot of experience. However, offensive line's kind of depleted. The running backs very lacking experience. The wide receiver group is basically just filled in transfers from Texas and Colorado State. 7 out of their 10 top tacklers from last year are gone. Defensive line kind of holds the depth, so that's a strength for them. But they had to go to the transfer portal to build the other levels, right? Linebacker and secondary, big question marks there. And then they get a schedule that is just extremely tough. One of the toughest schedules in the country this year, which they didn't have last year. They have to face Tennessee in week 1 at a neutral site. That's going to start the season off for them. Then they got to go at Clemson, at SMU, at Georgia Tech, at Miami, at Notre Dame. Road. Well, you had you had Miami at home last year. You had Georgia Tech at home last year. And I believe you beat these teams, right? So they're going to want their pound of flesh in their own stadiums. So that's going to be tough. And not only add SMU and Clemson to the mix as well. 9-win season and a bowl win last season is what happened with Syracuse. 7 of those wins were by possession or less, and there was 5 upsets. That's not going to happen 2 years in a row. You should see regression, and this is why the books weigh it as it is. Syracuse under 5.5 wins is the only way I play this. I'm sorry, Orange. You had a great year, but, man, they come a dime a dozen there in upstate New York. All right, next one here. We got UVA Cavaliers. Tony Elliott back again. Some changes, of course, losing some key weapons. The transfer portal kind of depleted them a little bit because I know a lot of those guys left. So changes are made. Is it going to be a tough year for this Virginia team? I'm seeing their win total here at 6.5, juice to the under. What are your thoughts, Coach, of the Virginia Cavaliers?
Yeah, this is a program that, God, I used to coach with a guy back in the day, Joe Krivak, who was a head coach at Maryland. He actually coached Frank Reich, by the way. But Coach Krivak went to Virginia and coached quarterbacks there for a while. And that was probably the last time that they won. And this is back in the 90s. So, again, I'm dating myself. But this is they just struggle. Like, it just seems year after year they just struggle. And they might have a good year here, and then it takes them 12 years to get back to, win 8-9 games. Tony Elliott is a very good football coach on the offensive side of the football. I don't think he's a good head coach. There's guys out there. They're just great coaches. but they're just not great head coaches. And I don't think Tony Elliott. I don't think he'll be around after this year if they don't win. I don't know, 7, 8 games. I mean, which I don't think is going to happen. So you mentioned the win total 6.5. It is juiced to the under. The schedule is actually kind of favorable. We'll talk about that in a minute. But offensively, which is his thing, he's bringing in Chandler Morris, which I'm sure you know Chandler Morris. I think I bet North Texas in some way, shape, or form every week of the season last year. So Chandler Morris comes in from North Texas to play QB, and they can be decent on offense, Virginia, and they were last year. They'll get the Edrine kid from Purdue, who was a decent receiver for Purdue last season, and then Jaden Thomas, receiver at Notre Dame. He's playing at Virginia now too. So offensively, I mean, a couple starters up front. So again, Tony Elliott's an offensive guy. Like, they'll be okay on offense, but defensively, like, this team's just not good. I mean, I'm trying to put it politely because I don't like to trash coaches because I've been there. I know how it is. I know how hard it is. But they're just not good. They gave up 30 points a game last year, and when you give up 30, I mean, you're giving up 4 touchdowns. You're spotting a team 4 touchdowns every game. If you can't score 35 points a game, you can't beat them, So I think they struggle again. And I think if you look at their schedule last year, I think they lost 6 of their last 7. And then this year you're going to play I think they get Louisville. They're at Louisville. They're at Duke. The season-ending game, Virginia Tech's the rivalry game they play every year. That's a big one. We'll talk about them in a second, but they should get some wins early. Do they get to 7? How? I mean, when's the last time Virginia won 7 games? I mean, So, Coastal Carolina, William & Mary's an FCS team, which they're not a bad FCS team either. So don't count that as a gimme, but they should beat them. They did Stanford at home. I mean, we just talked about them. They're not good. Wake Forest isn't very good either. They can get 4, maybe 5 again, like they did last year, but getting to 7, So it's not a good football team. Like I said, I don't think Tony Elliott's around much longer.
Yeah, this is. I agree with you in a sense, but I think the schedule for them kind of works in their favor, which it may overshadow who they really are. I mean, they're like almost the 100th toughest schedule. I mean, what is it, 89th, I believe. Their road games are NC State, Louisville, UNC, Cal, Duke. And then you don't have to face Clemson, SMU, and Miami. So that's kind of key on that one. But, yeah, you talked about Chandler Morris coming in. Chandler Morris did a good job at North Texas, but is he going to step up in class and get into ACC competition where he was facing kind of lackluster, anemic defenses at North Texas? Time will tell. With UVA, offensive production should be okay, I guess, but the defense has kind of been the key with this one. They got 8 starters back. They do beef up their defensive line. They go get guys from Bama and Ohio State. We'll see if that actually helps the team or hurts the team. Linebackers should remain intact. They do add some transfers there. So they kind of did the right things, whatever that may be for Tony Elliott and what you could do at UVA. But they had 5 wins last season, only 1 close loss. The previous 2 seasons, they only had they won 3 games a season. So they are on the up, I guess. But it's going to be one of those situations that, are they a bowl team? Are they not a bowl team? I mean, they're saying they are, but I just don't know if they can get to that 6.5. They may get to 6. And that's probably where the threshold is. And you're going to be sweating out that last game of the season against a Virginia Tech team that has kind of owned them year after year after year. Not a total I will take. Their schedule is favorable. Maybe a 6-win team to me. Maybe a 7-win team. I don't know. Is it enough to keep Tony Elliott's job? We shall see. All right, let's talk about their rival in-state, Blacksburg, Virginia Tech. I've been high on Virginia Tech, and I'm always high on Virginia Tech. I was high on them last year, and they let me down. Is it the coach? Is it Brent Pry? The talent's there. It looks good on paper. The parts and pieces look like they're in place. The schedule looks like they're in place. But this is Brent Pry, do or die. You got to get it done. Are they going to get it done, Coach? What do you think?
I sure hope so. Brent Pry is a Pennsylvania guy. He's from Altoona, which is about 20 miles from where I grew up. He was at Penn State. He was the D coordinator there. I hope he does well. And this is, Virginia Tech. I mean, we all know, like, this is a proud program with a long history of success. Going back. His name's escaping me now. It's a program that's won for years, and they've struggled in Pry's tenure and 6 and 7.
Talking about Frank Beamer?
I'm talking about Frank Beamer. I couldn't think of his name I could picture his face. But yeah, Beamer won a ton of games there, and they haven't won like that since then, and those people were craving it, man. But 6 and 7 isn't going to cut it. So Brent Pry went out and did a really good thing in hiring Philip Montgomery to be his OC. So if you don't know Philip Montgomery, he's a Art Briles guy, which I mentioned him, and sorry, but I mean, hey, they're good. They're good at offensive football. What can I say? But Philip Montgomery was with Art Briles back when they were coaching high school football in Texas. So he was at Baylor. He was at Auburn. He was the head coach at Tulsa for a while. Tulsa was really good offensively. He actually worked in the UFL last year, coaching Birmingham. So he's been around. Great offensive mind. He's going to have a great quarterback if he can stay healthy. Kyron Drones he's a very talented athlete. He's built like a fullback, but he throws well. He runs well. He's 6'2", 230, 240 pounds. Like he's a stud. He's just got to stay healthy. Terrian Stewart's back, he's a transfer from Bowling Green that'll come in as a running back. But the offense, I think, should be pretty good with Philip Montgomery kind of guiding the ship. You also have a new defensive coordinator, only two guys back on defense. So, Brent Pry is doing his best to make sure that he gets it right, because if he doesn't, he probably is gone. The really big problem that Brent Pry has, and I hope he navigates it well, they're going to open the season with South Carolina, which, that is a task that is going to be difficult. And then you're going to turn around and come back, and you got to play Vanderbilt at home. Mm-hmm. Vanderbilt, we talked about, our boy Diego Pavia and how that program is, on the up and up. They're going to get he's going to get some wins early because they do play Old Dominion. They play Wofford, which is an FCS school. They avoid Duke and SMU. A couple home games that'll be key: Louisville and Miami. It's the greatest entrance in college football. And I really want Brent Pry to walk down the sidewalk from the practice facility into the tunnel while Enter Sandman is playing, and I want him to take the field, and I really, really want him to be able to go over 6.5 wins. And I think that he might be playing Virginia at the end of the season, which unfortunately is at Virginia this year, but he might be playing UVA to get that 7th win. And I sure hope he gets there. I think that total is sharp. They're a 6 or 7 win season, or 6 or 7 win team. I want them to get 7. I sure hope they do. I'm not going to play their win total though. And like I said, Brent Pry's on the hot seat, and he's got to produce this year.
I'm in the boat where I'm going back to it. I said it last year. I'm back on my BS. I think this team goes over their win total. Kyron Drones, the reason why they lost is like he was dealing with an injury. He's fighting through an MCL, a turf toe, 2024. Now he's back healthy. That was kind of like a key reason that sometimes, in some games this team kind of fell off. The running back situation you mentioned, getting Terry and Stewart, huge from the MAC from Bowling Green. Braden Bennett, though, a sleeper from Coastal Carolina that they're bringing in as well. Solid backfield, nonetheless. They don't have a lot of experience in the wide receiver core, but they got talent. So the talent is really, resonating through there, but the experience is lacking. So we'll have to see who comes out of that group and actually kind of excels to build on the production for Kyron Drones in that backfield. You mentioned new O-line coach comes over from West Virginia. They brought over some of his guys as well to kind of help build that team back up as far as their offensive line. So they're going to be better, I think, on the offensive line than they were last year. Defense a lot different than last year. You mentioned the DC coming over, a slew of transfers to fill in the front seven and the secondary, and their schedule is really favorable. They open the year against South Carolina, but I think they're undervalued in that game. They got to play on Sunday early, so that I wonder if South Carolina is going to be up for that game. It is I believe it's on a neutral site if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and then you mentioned that Vandy game, but they got Vandy at home, and they're gonna have Enter Sandman rocking. It's just gonna be thumping in there, and they got that revenge factor. Mind you, they were a double-digit favorite going into that game, and they took them into overtime because they had so many flub ups in the first half. So I think that's another key spot that they're gonna try to get their pound of flesh on that one. Out of their 6 losses, 5 of those were by a possession or less. The only time they lost by more than that was against Clemson. They only lost by 10 points to Clemson, by the way. This team is coming under the radar this year where they weren't last year, in my opinion. So I think in this conference right now, nobody's talking about Virginia Tech. And maybe that's why Brent Pry likes it, because I think this team's on the come up. 7 or more wins is feasible to me. And I think they do hit the over, and they're going to contend. I like this team. I liked them last year. I like them again. I may be I maybe have to wear the dunce hat at the end of the year if they don't get this done. But I bought the hat and I bought a T-shirt because I thought I was going to be running laps talking about how great Virginia Tech was, and they let me down. Back of my BS. Give me the Hokies over on their wins. All right, last one before we close them out. If you're watching all the way through this video, we're almost 2 hours in on the ACC. You need to hit the like button. You need to subscribe to the J.A. Cavalier channel. You need to go follow us on Telegram. Coach Rick, Guns. That's where you find us. You can find us at Why Lose Guns and Why Lose Coach. I always get
that. Why Lose Coach.
And then you just go to Instagram and you can go find our Telegram links in our bio. That's where you can find us if you're just finding us out already. Let's go to the last and final one. Wake Forest. Ugh. Wow. This team kind of, Jake Dickert is taking over. He's the new head coach over there at Wake Forest. He was has a history as the DC, was promoted from being an intern coach. The new OC, new DC, a lot of changes, very much hit the reset button. Talent, there's some positive things to take from this team, but I'll pass it to you, Coach. Wake Forest, what do you think?
Let's start it off with some Coach Rick trivia. These numbers change every year, but bottom 5 lowest enrollments in the FBS, and Wake Forest could be the lowest. That's a school of only about 4,500, 5,000 students. This is a very small school, and they don't have the endowment like Duke. They don't spend a ton of money on football. Dave Clawson saw the writing on the wall. Dave Clawson pulled a Nick Saban, and we know Dave Clawson from his time up here at Bowling Green. Great football coach and an even better human. But he spent 11 years at Wake Forest, and that guy won some games there. He had an 11-win season. They played for an ACC title one year. Like, that's something that doesn't happen at Wake Forest. And again, Wake Forest, like Duke and Georgia Tech, like these are Ivy League schools in the South. They don't get the elite of the elite football players coming to their school. But Dave Clawson said, "Hey, I'm out," and Jake Dickert comes in. Jake Dickert actually was at Washington State, went 8-4, and he brought 8 or 9 dudes with him. Is that going to make a difference? I don't think so. He does get Robbie Ashford's a transfer from South Carolina. That'll be his QB, I believe. He does have Deshaun Purdy, too, who played at Charlotte. He was a decent athlete at QB. Defensively, they're going to struggle. I think they can get a couple wins early. They play Kennesaw State, which, that's not a gimme anymore. Kennesaw State is a new FBS program, but that's not a gimme. They do play FCS Western Carolina, but can they compete with SMU and Duke and Louisville, Miami? Some of them they don't play, but they got Georgia Tech. But we talked about some of these teams. Virginia Tech, SMU, Florida State, Virginia, North Carolina. Is Wake Forest on their level? No, they're not. Surprisingly, their win total, I saw it at 4.5. I mean, what's not to like about the under there? I mean, I don't think I'll touch it, but if I played it, I think I'm playing the under. It is juiced a little bit too. So I just don't think this is a team that has the type of talent that can compete with the other teams in the ACC. And unfortunately, they don't play Stanford.
Yeah, that's
so.
Yeah, if there's positive points, Robbie Ashford does come in. I think he came over from Auburn. I know he's been all over the place, but they get their running back who had a 1,000-yard rusher in Desmond Claiborne. So he's good. Rebuilt with transfers, so maybe the running game is a little bit better. O-line is basically primarily transfers from Washington State, and you mentioned it is probably because of the head coach over there getting those guys over. Defense brings back 6 starters. Defensive line was weak last year. They allowed 32.5 points per game, so they need to improve. That was a big issue for them. But you mentioned they're going to come out of the gate. They're going to face 2 FCS opponents before they even face a conference opponent. Maybe 2 wins there, but that's not that easy. Kennesaw. It's gonna. We'll see what happens. Wake Forest could be caught sleeping in some of these situations. First 5. So they stay at home, though, for the first 5 weeks of the season. It was kind of remarkable. They don't have to do a lot of traveling early on. Their road games are going to be Virginia Tech. They got to go Corvallis. They got to go to Florida State, UVA, Duke. They don't have to face Clemson or Miami, so that might be a little bit of a positive for them. 4 wins last season. 3 of those wins were on the road. Face a tougher schedule this year. They should be a dog in 9 games, maybe 10. I'm guessing. I see another 3 to 5 win team again. So I probably lean towards the under on this one. 4.5 to me is too high. And you got it juice at -140. You can get a pretty good value on that one. I'd probably lean towards the under with this Wake Forest team. And we did it. We went through every single college team. We ended it with the ACC. We're here to talk about the ACC. And the only thing to end this off properly is with best bets. Coach, what's your best win total? What's your best?
I'm going to give you a win total, and then I'm going to give you another one, and then I'm going to give you a little sprinkle. So, win total for me, like I said, I think Pitt is the surprise team in the ACC. I mean, there's just too much not to like. Just tons of talent back defensively. Holstein on offense. Over 6.5. Pitt Panthers over 6.5. Play it all day. And then you're going to want to take Clemson to reach the ACC title game. Guns mentioned it, that he saw it at +125. Plus money, I mean, come on. You got to take Clemson. I mean, we talked enough about them. The other one, I'm going to sprinkle a little because I think Clemson is going to play the Pitt Panthers for the ACC title.
Yeah.
And you can get Pitt to reach the ACC title game +1,500.
Oh my gosh!
Giddy up.
Whew. I don't hate that. And even if
Sprinkle a
you
little.
wanted to take them to win the ACC championship, maybe there's a hedge point. I don't know what the line's going to be. That's the problem. It may be too weighted, but I think Coach has the right approach on this one. I'm going to give 2 win totals as far as I go. I'm wearing the hat for a reason. Virginia Tech over on their win total. Golly, come on, one time, Brent Pry, for the boys. 6.5. I think they get it done. They got the talent back, and they're going to have a chip on their shoulder for what they had happened to the last year. And they have these revenge angles all over the place. I see multiple spots where we could bet Virginia Tech, including that Vandy game that I mentioned in week 2. That's going to be significantly huge. They want that one bad. And then, of course, I'm going to be taking the under on Syracuse, under 5.5 wins. I mean, just significant drop-off from a 9-win season. The line set at 5.5. That is a correlation factor. And they have the 5th toughest schedule in the country and they got to go to week 1 to go face an SEC team in the Falls. By God, it could be a slippery slope there for Fran Brown and the Orange. Give me the under on their 5.5 wins. But that's going to do it here for the ACC conference preview and all the conference previews. But guess what? There are going to be plenty of college football shows on the J.A. Cavalier channel. Don't you worry. Coach will be involved. Guns will be involved. And make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out, and hit the bell. Hit the bell so you know when the notifications come on when we go live. We'll be talking college football. We'll be talking NFL. Football season is among us here, folks. Week 0 is on Saturday. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe on this channel. That's going to do it here for the college football preview. I'm Guns Picks. That's Coach Rick. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And, Coach,
Giddy up.
let's keep dancing, baby. Bang!
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my own.